somebody called me a failure recently, and I've been waiting to come on here and share this with you guys because I wanted to make sure there was no bitterness and I wanted to deal with whatever was going on with me. But the reason I wanted to share it is because this is something that can definitely happen when you step out from what you are used to into something new. When you step away from the status quo into something new. When you step away from what people expect of you into that thing that God is calling you to, into that thing that you feel drawn to, into that thing that has been in your heart that you've been too scared to do. You know, this can happen because what I have realized over time is that, one, when you become an adult, you know, all of those markers for life and success, they kind of go away. You can no longer use grades as the marker for whether or not you're doing well. You know, maybe you can look at the amount that you're getting in your paycheck as success or failure, you know, if you want to, but like really you have this blank canvas. You know, I've been talking about this blank canvas for a while, but you kind of get this blank canvas to kind of design on it what is success. And, you know, the ultimate marker of success is whether or not you are in alignment with what God has created you to do, what God has called you to do. But then, you know, on a secondary level and on an everyday basis, there are no more markers for success. So it can be really challenging for those of us who are achievers and used to checking boxes and used to getting degrees and used to getting A's and, you know, having that concrete version of what it looks like for success, you know, having a grade, having a rubric, having a this is it, you know. And so what's funny about that, you know, that whole situation may have broken me a few months ago, a few years ago, because I would have been in that space of thinking, you know, is this success to everybody else? Is this how it's supposed to be? Is this right? But you know, when you step out into this creative space and you say yes and you go ahead and embark on a new journey where there's unknown, when you give God your yes and he says, hey, let me take you to this place that he knows but you don't know, you know, and you decide that you're going to leave behind those things that you are used to, the things that are most comfortable to you, the things that are easily put into a box, the things that you can easily see from here all the way to the end of there, and you decide to step out into an open plain, it means then that you're leaving behind the security of the success markers that you're used to. And so what's the whole point of this? The whole point of this is that you are then given an opportunity to chart a new vision for what success means to you. And you do that between you and God. It's literally a conversation that only the two of you guys can really have, because God knows the parts of you that you don't even know yet. You know, God knows those parts of you. And then of course the Amazon truck wants to come and park right behind me in the middle of my video, but that's fine. We're gonna keep it moving. It was nice and quiet. But you know, God knows those parts of you that you haven't even learned yet. Those parts of you that haven't had a chance to blossom because you've been in a box. Similar to a plant that is planted in a very small, you know, pot, and then you take that plant and put it in a bigger pot, or even plant it in a garden. You will be surprised how much bigger that plant can grow, because now the roots have so much more space to expand. Now there's, like, you know, so much more territory. The same thing happens when you give God your yes and you allow him to take you out of the box that you've been living in and to put you in an open plain where, again, it's not, you know, straight, it's not cut and dry, it's not straightforward. I mean, he has a straightforward version because he has the blueprint from beginning to end, but you don't, you know. And so you have the opportunity again to create that, and it's a process that you can only do, you know, with you and God. That's something that you have to sit in the stillness and the quiet with God, and it may take some time, because it means that when you're then put from this small pot into the bigger pot, or from the small pot into the garden, it means that there's going to be parts of the anatomy of your plant, your plant, that have not been able to express themselves previously because there wasn't space for that. It wasn't even called for. When you have a plant in a super small, you know, in a super small pot, there's certain things about that plant that are not going to grow and develop. You know, let's just say you put a bush and you start a bush in a small pot. You're likely not going to grow a full bush in that small pot. You may get a sprout, you may get some stems, you may get small things, but the anatomy of what that actual, you know, plant and seed is meant to develop into, you will not be able to see that until it is taken from that small pot and put then into a garden where it is then able to expand and thrive. Hopefully that bug doesn't come back over here. And the same thing is such for us. And so it may take time in the stillness to really, figure out how to chart that new path, figure out what parts of you can now live in this open space, figure out what parts of you have always been there. Because just like, when a bush is planted, that seed was always a seed that would grow into a bush. However, depending on the environment and the soil it was planted in and the restrictions of such, it could only grow so far. So the same thing is such with us. So it may take time in that stillness to then sit with God and allow, him to extend our roots further than what they could in our small pot, to allow him to pull us up higher than what, those small roots could even sustain in the smaller pot. So then we are able to chart a new vision for, oh wow, maybe I'm not just a stem. Maybe I'm not just a sprout. Maybe I was always meant to be a tree. Maybe I was always meant to be a tree that bears fruit, and lots of it. Maybe I was meant to be a mango tree. I don't know. What's your favorite fruit? Either way, I'm getting off subject. But all I'm saying, to bring it back to the original point, is it can definitely be a challenging thing to go from everything being cut and dry, black and white, readily defined for you already, to stepping out into charting a new vision on an open plain, in a garden rather than a small pot, with God, challenging your brain to think critically again, to imagine again, to dream again, to think further than what your potted self could even imagine, and to start thinking about the garden you, and what maybe you planted in a garden can grow into. Because again, when you're in a small pot, you're like, hey, we're here. This is all we can grow into. And so once the roots grow as far as they can grow in that small pot, that's it. But you get to have this opportunity to dream and imagine forward. I'm not talking about vain imaginations and making up stuff, but I'm talking about, you get to step into that open plane of having the mind of Christ, as we do. You get to step into that creative nature of God that he created us in his image to have, and in a new way that you weren't able to before, when everything again was, this is it, it's step A, B, C, and I know every step of the way. I know this is success. Whoop, checked it off, and that's it. But when you have a blank canvas, you have a plain, an open plain, you have a open garden full of nutritious soil with seeds planted, it requires something different of you. It requires you to imagine in a different way. It requires your seed to sprout further than just that little, original sprout with one leaf on it. It gives your seed and your plant, the plant of you, an opportunity to grow roots down deeper than it could in a pot, to grow roots more expansively than it ever could in a pot. And it allows you to then, with those, deeper and firmer and more expansive roots, to grow up even taller than they could in a smaller pot. And that can be a scary thing, because going from everything being defined to, as Natasha Bedingfield, I think that's her name, says in that song, the rest is unwritten. It's a blank page before you. And really, our story's already written by God. But as far as we can see, it's a blank page before you. It can be kind of scary, It's like, hey, where's the instruction manual? Where's the part that's already written out? Can I get, I want to see A to B. I want to see how, how the steps are going to play out, just so I can mentally prepare myself. And yes, we can trust that there is an instruction manual somewhere, but we're not going to be able to see that whole thing. We're most likely going to get one instruction at a time, one step at a time, as we need it. And so with that, to bring it back to the original, it's an opportunity for you to redefine what success means for you in all areas. You get to think about what wellness means to you spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, creatively. You get to think about what success means for you in your career or your business. It does not have to look the same as what it has looked like for everyone else. It does not have to look the same as what everyone else defines it as in your industry. You have an open plane. This life that you live, you only get one. So it's best to live it in the way that God cultivated you to live it, and so it's not going to, and it does not have to look like anything that has been there before. and it does not have to look like anything that you've been used to. And it's likely not going to, because again, what you grow in the pot is not what you're going to grow in the garden. You're no longer limited to what you were able to grow in the pot. So allow yourself to sit with God and allow, him to allow you to connect to his creative nature so that you can imagine like more, and when you truly redefine success for yourself, then no one can come up to you and tell you that you're a failure. Only you and God get to decide that. And as long as you get back up and try again, whether it be try that same thing again or try something new, you can never be a failure, because every quote unquote failure leads to a lesson if you allow it to. And those lessons are just stepping stones that you can step onto to go to the next level of the success that you and God have defined. And so I invite you today to sit with God. Maybe even a journal prompt for you today would be, what is success for me? And maybe you can define it. As far as my wellness goes spiritually, what does success look like for me? Physically, what does success look like for me? Because not everybody wants to run 6 miles a day. I can tell you, not everybody. I'm the not everybody. Because even though I do want to incorporate a little bit of running, I was thinking maybe I could start with once a week. Baby girl's not a runner. At least not right now. That's not success for me. But whatever that means to you. So you want to put on your, your wellness part of your journal, like, what does physical wellness look like for me? Is it, I want to eat more veggies? That's success for me. What does mental wellness, what does success look like in that area for you? I want to start going to therapy. I want to start journaling more. I want to start being mindful of my thoughts, whatever that looks like for you. What does emotional wellness, what does success look like in that area for you? Maybe I want to start setting boundaries that honor me in this new, vision of success that me and God have built. What does it look like creatively? Are you a painter? Are you an artist? Are you an author? Are you, someone that's good with numbers? Because even that is creativity. Those who do creative, math formulas and all of that, that's creative too. Are you an engineer? And is that your area of creativity? What does creative success look like to you? What does career success look like to you? What does family success look like to you? And you don't have to necessarily feel challenged to, check off all of these at one time and sit down in your journal and have it done tonight. I mean, maybe you've already been thinking about it and you can go ahead and do that. But if not, these are things you can just start marinating on in your quiet time with God. And as they come to you, as you begin to unpack things or even go back to things in childhood that you're like, hey, actually, I would like to bring that back. That is success to me. That resonates with me. You can write it down and then begin to put steps forward to implement that in your life. But long story long, success, when you become an adult, it's no longer defined by someone else unless you allow it to be. It's up to you and God. It's up to you to sit with God and for you guys to co-create what success means to both of you guys, to come to a consensus about what success means collectively, and then give yourself the freedom to walk that out, and yeah, make sure that when you set up that success, that it's something that resonates with your heart, and that you allow yourself the flexibility to say, hey, I wrote this down on paper, and when I started walking it out, I realized that either two of my ideas of success conflicted, or I realized I learned something new about myself, and actually that version of success actually doesn't align with me, doesn't align with what I'm called to. There were still remnants of, what the world told me success was supposed to be. And, maybe I've learned, hey, that never resonated with me. It's a journey, and it's not about switching and changing your mind every 5 seconds, but it is about allowing yourself the freedom to change your mind if necessary, to chart a new path if necessary, to be able to flow with the Spirit, both yours and God's, as necessary. And so I'm going to leave that with you today. I hope that you do go ahead and do your homework. I'm going to call it homework, like, you got to have it done by tomorrow, but definitely something to be thinking about. And just know that you are a success today because you got up today to try again. And even if you felt like you failed today, you have tomorrow, God willing, to try again and to learn whatever lessons you needed to from today. And so I hope that you have a healthy and wholesome day, and I will talk to you soon, God willing. Love you guys bunches.